The federal crackdown on illegal immigration is starting to affect the Texas agriculture industry. Some farmers say their workers are too scared to show up for work somewhere in the heart of America. There are fields burning not from drought or wildfire, but from landowners themselves, setting fire to the last of their hopes. People are calling it the Great Farmer Exodus of America. Just in the past year, over 50,000 farms have been abandoned or sold off in desperation, all shaken under the weight of tariffs. Input costs and the rise of competitors. Meanwhile, across the border, Canada is experiencing an unprecedented agricultural boomland. Prices are surging, government subsidies are flowing, and people are flocking to the farms. What's really happening? Why are American farmers fleeing the very soil of their ancestors? And why is Canada smiling? Join me as we uncover 5 U.S. states where farmers are walking away from agriculture. Note: all information presented is compiled from statistical data and is not intended to discredit any organization. Number 1. Texas. Texas is setting its own fields on fire. In the summer of 2025, many areas of the Lanier state have stopped waiting for rain. Farmers are burning wheat while it's still standing in the fields because there's no one left to harvest it, no factories to buy it, and no way to store it for tomorrow. But this isn't a decision. It's the bitter consequence of a relentless chain of pressures that Texas farmers have never faced before. In this century, Texas has long been the largest agricultural state in the U.S. with over 250,000 farms, stretching from central regions to the southern border. But in less than a year, more than 11,000 farms have shut down or shifted to other purposes. Part of this is due to out-of-control costs for fertilizer fuel and irrigation water. But another part comes from less mentioned factors like the severe labor shortage or the silent cracks between policy and reality on the ground. Since the beginning of the year, Texas farmers have been navigating overwhelming difficulties. Not only are they facing unfavorable weather, they also lack workers, according to local agricultural organizations. About 40% of farm laborers are immigrants, most of whom lack proper documentation. Since mid-2020, the situation has worsened with frequent surprise inspections. Some ranch owners in the southern part of the state report that overnight their entire workforce vanished, leaving behind silent barns and unharvested fields. And tonight, local farm worker advocates are calling out President Trump's directive, telling ICE to pause raids at farms, restaurants and hotels. The labor shortage not only leaves wheat rotting in the fields, but also affects dairy cows, which must be milked regularly. Every few hours, some farms simply can't keep up and have had to forfeit their entire season. Meanwhile, the cost of using legal labor through the H-2A visa program has soared to over $20,000 per season, an unmanageable figure for many small and medium-sized farms faced with 2 dead-end options. Many have no choice but to walk away, but labor is just the beginning of the story when farming stops. Land is gradually put up for sale, and the buyers are mostly not local. Many farms have been transferred to investment funds, including companies. From Canada, some of these plots are later used to build logistics centres and warehouses instead of continuing agriculture. Prolonged drought has made the situation even worse. Many wheat-growing areas, especially in the western part of the state, have been declared total losses in regions near the Mexico border. The Rio Grande has dried up after the 2 countries entered a dispute over water rights when the U.S. demanded that Mexico return. The agreed-upon water quota, Mexico retaliated by reducing agricultural imports from Texas, shifting purchases to Canada instead. What was once a cooperative cross-border farming relationship has now turned tense, and the ones bearing the brunt are the farmers of Texas. Worse yet, regions not suffering from drought have faced erratic rain in East Texas. Heavy rain throughout May prevented many farmers from sowing on scheduled seedlings. Drowned tractors sat idle, and the entire season was delayed in a sector where timing is everything. Being a week late can mean losing the whole crop, and the consequences are clearly visible in the numbers as of mid-2025 total. Agricultural losses in Texas have surpassed $2.7 billion, according to estimates by the Texas Farm Bureau, mainly due to crop failures, cancelled export contracts, and soaring operating costs. Meanwhile, across the border, Canada has secured over $1.22 billion in new agricultural export contracts in Q2 2025 alone, largely by stepping in to replace U.S. suppliers in markets like Japan, Mexico, and Europe. While Texas is struggling to hold on to every acre, Canada is quietly and effectively moving forward. The province of Saskatchewan, known for its fertile soil, is expanding agricultural settlement programs, attracting skilled growers from around the world. In May 2025, applications from the U.S., particularly from Texas and California, surged significantly. People who had spent their entire lives in the American South are now considering a fresh start in the cold North, where they receive technical support, have access to a stable workforce, and most importantly feel heard when farms shut down. The consequences ripple through entire communities. Property tax revenues drop sharply, slashing budgets for schools and hospitals. Some areas have had to shorten school terms, postpone mobile health programs, and raise tuition. Elderly residents, once hopeful their grandchildren would have a better future, now face a harsh reality. No land, no schools, no clinics. The most alarming part is this: the next generation of farmers seems to be losing faith in the path of their ancestors. Many young people in Texas are choosing to leave the land for the city. Some switch to factory jobs in the auto industry. Others enter services, logistics, or hospitality. Anything but agriculture for them. The farm is no longer a dream, it's a burden. They don't leave because they hate farming, but because they can't make a living from it. And how ironic it is Texas slowly lets go. Its northern neighbor is expanding farmland, investing in exports and signing contracts with partners once loyal to the U.S. Canada is ready to fill the gap America is leaving behind. And if Texas, the top agricultural producer in the nation, is being forced to retreat, then the question is, what will happen to the rest? If no one wants to farm anymore, who will be left to feed America? Number 2, Nebraska. Once marked boldly on the global wheat export map, Nebraska has long been one of the most vital pillars of America's grain industry. From here, wheat was shipped to ports across the globe, from the East Coast to Europe, from the West to Asia. But by mid-2025, in fields once echoing with the sound of harvesters, an eerie silence has taken over. That silence doesn't come from natural disasters or sudden crises. It comes from something more ironic. Farmers have fled en masse. That shift became unmistakable after the recent NATO summit, when Spain was criticized for not increasing defense spending. Few imagined that event would make European grain traders wary. Some import corporations began backing out of contracts with U.S. suppliers, turning instead to Canada, where prices were stable and trade policies were free from geopolitical disputes. It was an indirect but powerful blow landing, just as Nebraska was already struggling for weeks. Wheat prices hovered around $5 per bushel, too low to guarantee profit. Even with a good harvest, growers were forced to sell at a loss or store their grain in cold storage, waiting for a market rebound that might never come. With no market, credit also began to dry up, according to the Federal Reserve's Kansas City branch. Local banks now only disperse loans with clear export contracts or price guarantees. For Nebraska farmers, both conditions are increasingly rare. As the market faltered, the familiar began to unravel. In June, reports from 14 counties confirmed the rapid spread of tar pot, a fungus that devastates crops, especially corn and soybeans. While it doesn't directly affect wheat, it threw entire cultivation plans into disarray, drove up pesticide costs, and disrupted planting across large areas. These pressures didn't come one by one. They hit all at once, with prices low, credit restricted, costs rising, and markets withdrawing. Farming became a problem with no solution. That's when many decided not to farm, not with declarations, but with very concrete actions. No loan applications, no repairing harvesters, no ordering seed for the next season. And Nebraska is not alone in filming this at the same time. Northern Canadian provinces are ramping up wheat exports in the first half of 2025. Canada exported over 6.6 million tonnes, more than a 20% increase year over year. Many contracts once held by U.S. suppliers are now being signed with companies in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Market share hasn't vanished. It has simply shifted. Canada's logistics infrastructure has also seen heavy investment. The Port of Vancouver has expanded storage areas. Interprovincial rail is prioritised for agricultural goods, and cooperatives receive operational subsidies to keep prices stable. These moves have helped Canada not just maintain, but reclaim the market space left behind by the US. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, the story goes beyond the wheat fields. The production drop has triggered a chain reaction across communities. As farms shut down land, tax revenue plummets, local budgets, heavily reliant on agriculture, begin to fall short. Schools delay, teacher hires hospitals, cut after services fire stations move to part-time shifts. Things once considered basic to everyday life are now growing fragile. That anxiety is hard to name it. Weaves through sparsely attended co-op meetings, quiet farmers markets, and the hesitant way people speak about the next season. They haven't given up, but they're no longer sure they will continue. One thing is changing clearly: America's role in the global wheat supply chain. If Nebraska was once a cornerstone, today its fields are no longer named in major contracts. Even some food factories in the US have begun using Canadian imported wheat, where there's a price floor, minimal volatility, and on-time delivery for many Nebraska wheat growers. The hardest thing to accept isn't crop failure or financial loss. It's the feeling of falling behind in a world that's speeding up. They can't see a clear path forward while other countries have already signed contracts, expanded networks, upgraded ports, and built lasting ties with importers. And as Nebraska continues to wrestle with the question of whether to plant or not, market share keeps slipping away without warning, without announcement. And as Nebraska retreats, other states in the grain belt are starting to feel it too. Kansas is seeing its first production decline after years of stability north. Dakota is struggling with access to the Chinese market, and Iowa, the nation's soybean hub, now faces a difficult equation of surpluses and market collapse. Nebraska's story is no longer just its own. It is a preview of what may come when an industry that once symbolized America begins to slow down, and the world doesn't wait. Number 3, Arizona. Once a land of opportunity, Arizona has now become the first place immigrants are pulling out from for decades. Arizona was not only a destination for retirees, but also one of the rare promised lands for manual laborers, particularly within the immigrant community from Yuma to Maricopa, Cochise to Gila Bend farms. Growing lettuce, tomatoes, eggs and greenhouse fruits created tens of thousands of seasonal jobs. With mild winters, a convenient border location, and a lower cost of living compared to coastal states, Arizona became the top choice for both poor Americans and undocumented immigrants seeking a better life. Yet by mid-2025, a paradox has become clear. Arizona, once a symbol of agricultural stability, now has the highest rate of agricultural abandonment in the country. Why would a place that seems to have it all, land-sun experience, be the first to be left behind? The answer began earlier this year when Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) raids at the border surged sharply. Multiple local news outlets confirmed ICE had launched surprise inspections across numerous farms near Yuma right at the peak of the winter vegetable season. The sudden disappearance of a large portion of the workforce stalled the entire chain, from harvesting to packing and transportation. Many farmers had to cancel orders because there was no one to pick the crops. Some even chose to abandon cultivation mid-season, unable to ensure delivery to domestic supermarkets. The labor crisis wasn't just about lacking people, it was also about fear. Even those with legal documentation began to worry about the growing uncertainty of working in an increasingly restrictive environment. And that's not all alongside the labor shortage. Arizona faced a severe water crisis since late 2024. Counties like Pinal and CRUSHES were placed under strict water management zones. By mid-2025, many farm owners reported being prohibited from drilling new wells, while allocations from the Colorado River were being redistributed. Under such conditions, even with quality seeds and modern machinery, growers could do nothing without irrigation. The dual pressure of lacking workers and water forced many small farms, even long-established cooperatives, to shut down vegetable sorting lines in Yuma. Halted refrigerated trucks stopped picking up goods the night farmers' markets. Once the heartbeat of the region began to empty of traders, but the feeling of abandonment came from elsewhere. Federal policy in the first quarter of 2025, several federal agricultural aid packages were temporarily withheld from Arizona due to budgetary conflicts. At the same time, a mandatory avian flu vaccination policy led at least one major egg farm in Pinal to cull over 6 million chickens. The owner publicly protested, arguing that the disease control measure came without technical or financial support. Altogether, Arizona became one of the few states to lose all three critical elements of agriculture at once: labor resources and policy support in regions that survive solely on seasonal harvests. The impacts go beyond the fields. When growers give up warehouses, lose clients, supply stores can't sell goods, childcare centers or understaffed adults have to quit their jobs too. A cycle of poverty begins to take shape. And strangely, it's the very people who once came here for manual labor opportunities who are now the first to leave. Some have moved to California for fruit packing jobs, others have quit farming entirely, switching to delivery work, car washing, or trying their luck in the cities. Some, a small but growing number, are now applying to go to Canada. Yes, Canada, once seen as having harsher weather and lower incomes, is now opening its doors to workers with agricultural skills. Programs like the Agri Food Pilot or the CM Agricultural Worker Stream are currently reviewing applications from people with experience in gardening, greenhouses, or egg farming. Exactly the skill sets Arizona's workers possess, and the biggest irony is beginning to show Americans are leaving America to keep farming because Canada offers subsidies, crop insurance, and an open immigration policy. Not every farmer qualifies to go, but even the mere thought of considering it is already a warning sign. If you've witnessed America's many transformations, this shift evokes a hard-to-describe emotion. Farmers here have lived with the belief that the U.S. was the final destination, the place to come build dreams. Now, as they watch laborers leave to survive elsewhere, the feeling is not just of loss, but of a profound reversal. Many older Americans once saw waves of immigrants arriving in Arizona, new homes rising, fields bustling. They were once skeptical, once worried, but eventually got used to the sight. But now, as those very people leave, taking with them their skills and belief in the land, what's left behind is not just an empty field, but a void in the heart of the community. And the saddest part is this isn't just happening in Arizona. From California to Iowa, from Texas to Nebraska, pieces of American agriculture are beginning to crack, and the list is still growing. Number 4, California. If it were just a year ago, no one would have believed that Canada, a place where winter snow lasts half the year, a country once absent from the temperate fruit game, could overtake one of America's most fertile agricultural valleys. Yet, by summer 2025, British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan have not only expanded their fruit-growing acreage, but are also exporting directly to the U.S. market, once dominated by California. Farmers in British Columbia, yields of cherries, apples, and white peaches have increased by more than 30% compared to the same period in 2024. Saskatchewan has begun operating medium-scale greenhouses for off-season, year-round production. The Canadian government has rolled out electricity subsidies, crop insurance, and agricultural stabilization funds, enabling farmers to plant, harvest, and export without resorting to price dumping. Meanwhile, Central Valley, a region that once accounted for nearly a quarter of the US's fresh fruit output, is struggling with a puzzle no one can solve: how to farm without profit. According to reports from the California Farm Bureau, electricity costs for pumping water to grape, peach, and orange farms have risen over 150% since 2023. Many farmers have had to halt irrigation mid-season because they couldn't afford the power bills. At the same time, groundwater protection laws have prohibited hundreds of farms from drilling new wells, even as surface water sources have dried up on top of